here's somewhere we're going to go for Music Monday. Now, we're both, I mean, we were talking about this off mic, how much it's such a bummer amidst this pandemic to not be able to play live, or very limited. I mean, I know like in your case with music, there's some like outdoor things you can still kind of do. Comedy doesn't really have that. I mean, it does a little bit, but usually comedy's pretty much an indoor thing, and that's not really happening right now. And it's a bummer. But the other thing that I think we can both recognize is that if there's any group of people that never gets screwed over and always gets treated fairly, it's artists. I mean, always, especially musicians. Musicians have always been treated right. You never hear stories where they get screwed over beyond comprehension, ever. I mean, especially, even back in the day, all those blues artists, they were compensated completely fairly for the songs they wrote. They were
especially the black artists. Yeah, especially the black artists that were covered by white artists. Like,
oh yeah,
you never heard of anyone getting screwed over in that.
No one ever got screwed over. Watch someone take this clip completely out of context and share it, like some like fringe right wing blog. Like, see, they're telling the truth. It never happened.
We need like a sarcasm flashing button. Be like, no, we are not whitewashing history. It was actually really bad and still is.
It was really, oh man, since we brought up college, when I was in college, I went to Indiana University, and they have like they were like the, I believe they were the originators of like the rock history department, or one of the originators of that sort of thing. And there was this guy every Tuesday, he would show these blues documentaries about some of the like original blues guys. And it was so cool because he I think there were kids like they'd bring in like a flask or something, and he didn't care as long as you were on the DL about it. And it was just chill. You just watch these blues documentaries, and they were so sad though, because it was you would see footage from like, I guess it would have been, I don't know what decade it would have been exactly, but it was like somewhat recent, comparatively speaking, to when the songs were released, of, like Big Boy Crudup and people like that still working on a farm because they were never given a dime for the songs they wrote. And you just see them and they're just like, how many songs do I need to write before I don't have to do this? And it's like, well, you shouldn't have had to do this for years. Like millions have been made off of your music, and you've not. I mean, it's just, it is nothing short of criminal what happened. And I mean, the people who were responsible for that, I think should be in prison for what they did. I mean, but anyway. So here's an example where they're going against the grain and actually screwing over these artists. Check this out. This is from Rolling Stone. Live Nation wants artists to take pay cuts and cancellation burdens for shows in 2021. So there's still no telling when music venues will be able to reopen their doors to large crowds of concert goers. Live Nation, they want to put some of this uncertainty on the artists. So here's some of the things they want to do. Here, let's see. Let's get down to the meat of it. Okay, so cancellation due to poor sales. If a show is canceled due to poor ticket sales, the artists only get 25% of the guarantee as opposed to all. Now, here's an interesting part. Cancellation by artists. Now, keep in mind, we're amidst a pandemic. If an artist cancels his performance in breach of the agreement, the artist will pay the promoter 2 times the artist's fee. If the promoter, here's another one, inability to use full capacity of the venue. If the promoter, either because of orders of the venue or any governmental entity, is not permitted to use the full capacity of the venue, then the promoter may terminate the agreement and artists will refund any money previously paid. So if a promoter decides we don't want to do this because of, because of it's not full capacity, even though we knew this ahead of time, we're still just pulling the plug because we feel like it, you don't get any money. But, if you have to cancel because, hey, we're amidst a pandemic and I have to cancel for whatever reason, you have to pay 2 times the artist's fee. It's like these institutions are realizing that they're suffering, and they're saying, who can we gouge? We have to gouge somebody, because at the end of the day, we're basically middlemen. And I'm not saying that concert promotion isn't a line of work. Of course it is. And there are some people who do it damn well. I'm not trying to, write off that line of work by any means. But yeah, this sucks. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I am not surprised, because people in these types of positions generally look to themselves first, whether you're talking about the music industry or whether you're talking about, the CEO of Walmart. And actually, I just looked up the CEO, Michael Rapino of the Live Nation. His salary is $14,400,000. Their CFO,
Of course it is.
it's almost 2 million. General counsel and secretary is like over 1.5 million. Their accounting officers like just over half, just over 500,000. And it's like, they never take the cuts from the top down to support the music industry. Because I think they take musicians and the whole industry for granted. They say, well, we're going to save ourselves. If you're not okay with that, we're going to book someone else. And we've seen this historically as like, I have friends they've been gigging since like the 70s, and they'll say, yeah, musicians are the one, guarantees for bands are the one thing that hasn't changed since the 70s, or it's gotten worse.
Yeah. Well, comedy's the same way. Like the pay scale has literally gone down numerically from the 80s until now. And there's a variety of reasons for it. Now, what's interesting is that there is some unionization in the music world. There's none whatsoever in the comedy world. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you would know more than me in this, but like that unionization typically doesn't go into, somebody playing songs at a venue, especially if it's original music. Is that correct?
Well, I think I haven't, this is kind of embarrassing because I'm a staunch supporter of unions, and I was part of my teachers union. I haven't actually joined the musicians union. They do protect you at any level, but you have the most to be protected by when you are, in the higher thresholds of the industry. And for me, I feel like what I'm making financially, I don't have that much to protect. And therefore it would like cost me more than I would be protecting through that. Now they do, if I were to sign up as, or join a musicians union, they would do things like protecting a contract. If I work out a contract with someone, if they breach that contract, I can go to my union for representation, and then they could guarantee that the venue follows that contract. So I think there is protection, but I think, it doesn't necessarily make sense for me right now to be part of the union.
Well, do you know if there's any like preemptive measures in musicians union? And it's okay if you don't, but like would they, for an instance like this, like getting back to like this piece of news, would they step in and be like, these agreements are complete bullshit. You're trying to take advantage of us during a pandemic. We're all suffering together. You're not going to make us suffer more. We realize, because I mean, that's my initial response to this. Like, look, Live Nation and every other promoter out there, we realize the pandemic's not your fault, but you're not going to take it out on us. Like, that's not fair. Like, you don't get to take it out on the artist. And to me, that's what this is. This is taking it out on the artist, where it's like, we gotta collect the nickels and dimes somewhere. And at this point, like, the artist is the only person we have left, because, we make these agreements. We want to see profit from every agreement. And right now, because of this pandemic, well, the only agreements we can be making is with the artist. Hey, we're going to book you for April 2021. We're going to book you for, October, hoping it's down by then. But by the way, if it isn't, if you cancel, screw you, give us money. If we cancel, you ain't getting a dime.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is where that comes in of like, do you have union representation? Like, I could definitely see them intervening if you have specific artists that have issues with the contract. I could also see like household names, like if Taylor Swift is going to play, you know, Red Rocks or whatever, or the Pepsi Center or whatever, I could see she's going to have like a really powerful team of people behind her. But what I think what we're going to see is some of the people that are, again, in like the higher echelons of the music industry are going to have a team of people that are capable of negotiating better terms. I think the mid-level and lower people in the lower echelons are really going to be struggling, that they're not going to have as much clout to work with. They're not going to have the representation behind them. And Live Nation is going to be like, well, if you don't want to do it, we're going to choose that other person. And that's kind of what we saw with the kind of either staying the same or like declining rates of like, you know, the entertainment industry is, well, if you don't take the gig, someone else will, you know, they'll undercut you and they'll do it for less. And that becomes kind of the status quo for what's expected of artists, of that venue, of that town, of that general community, locally, regionally, even on a national level. So I think...
No, go ahead.
Oh, so I think we're going to see that as like a continuation of this decline, and actually exponentially speeding up that process because of the pandemic, because Live Nation isn't going to want to take it out of their own pockets. And I think what that's going to do is long-term really hurt the music industry and music community.
So what you brought up too, that I wanted to also mention, you know, you talk about like, well, if it's Taylor Swift and if it isn't that, I feel like that's something I would like to see happen more. Will artists that have the power and the platform speak out about stuff like this? And I'm not implying like none do, because some do. But I think like something like this, I think, could be stopped if artists with the biggest platforms said, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. We're not working with you if you do this.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen and to what extent. I think a lot of people are scared. I think people like Taylor Swift are scared of what that's going to mean for their income too. And it really is going to take people taking a stand for everyone that we have seen in so many different aspects of society. It really takes taking a stand for everyone, for the betterment of everyone, rather than just working out your individual contract for your self-interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see stuff like when there's efforts made online, you know, like sometimes like you see some things that kind of work out. Like whenever like I know like musicians boycotted a thing Amazon was doing and it ended up working out. I forget all the details, but it was like some kind of like festival Amazon was trying to pull off, and I think like ICE was incorporated with it, and a bunch of musicians were just like, nope. And so they ended up having to scrap it. So it's like, you know, I think when musicians and other artists too, like really mobilize, and it's like, you know, someone at my level is not doing anything with Live Nation. Someone at your level is, well, I guess in music you might be, but in comedy at my level, it's just not going to happen. But in Live Nation, like, you know, because there's a lot, like you guys do a lot of festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of smaller, like more community or regional festivals. I haven't personally worked with Live Nation, but they have been buying up and like working out contracts with a lot of what used to be independent venues in Denver. So I have actually been seeing that impact more. Oh, totally. A lot of people are really freaked out by that.
Because I mean, I feel like, and I want your take on this, and this kind of gets into like a different territory a little bit, but still connected to what we're talking about. I feel like the concept of the folk club is not non-existent anymore. It's still out there, but you really have to dig for it, and you really have to find it, and you really have to like just go out of your way to hold on to it. And I don't even mean just folk club, but even like, you know, like where I live, a lot of like the punk rock bars I go out of my way to make sure I go there, because I really don't want this to go away. And I'm not sure if that's still a common thing. You know what I mean? Because like I'll even notice a lot of times the people there are my age and older. Not all the time, but a lot of the times it's so like I kind of wonder if that sort of notion is going away, and you just sort of go where, oh, something cool is here, so I'm just randomly going here, and I know there's something cool I want to see, as opposed to a lot of cool stuff comes here, and I appreciate that. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Um, as far as my experience in Fort Collins, at least, like when I go to shows, I feel like I'm oftentimes the oldest person there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there are some, whether they're a dive bar, whether they're a club, whether they're whatever kind of venue, that are just known for having great music or great shows or great whatever. A lot of the ones that I like the most have a lot of diversity. And so I'm having the problem that in town, even in Fort Collins, which is smaller than Denver, but definitely when I go to Denver, it's like, well, I want to go to 4 different shows and they're all happening at the same time. What 1 or 2 can I actually make it to? And it really depends on what they're getting that night, because they get such a vast variety. Whether one night they might have, a hardcore punk show, the other night they might have like kind of experimental, like kind of dream surf pop, whatever,
Yeah.
And so it's just one night they might have bluegrass. That's a huge thing in Colorado. And so depending what they get, that's what helps determine where I go. So I generally don't just show up somewhere. Now, when I do have people that are in from out of town and they're in Denver, I'll say, okay, well, my favorite venues to go to are, the High Dive, the Larimer Lounge. If you want to go to a theater show, like check out the Bluebird Theater, the Gothic Theater, it's like more intimate theater shows or whatever. But I feel like at least a lot of the venues here in Colorado get such a wide diversity of genres that I don't just blindly show up, But
no. I know what you mean, and just to clarify a little bit, like when I say like folk club and punk bar and stuff like that, I don't literally mean those are the only genres that are permitted there. I just mean more in the spirit of it, like where I live in Pasadena, there's a place called Old Town Pub, and it's like, I mean, there's a lot of like punk rock decor on the walls and stuff like that, but they have all kinds of genres that play there. It's not like it's exclusive to one type of music. It's just like in spirit, I know that I'm going to appreciate what's going on there. Whether it be a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar, or whether it be like a Riot Girl night with a bunch of, all-female punk bands, whether it be like kind of a jazzy blues quartet. And I'm mentioning all these because those are all things I've seen there recently. So, it's a broad range of things, but it kind of like, I appreciate, everything I see there and stuff like that. And it's that type of a spot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that speaks volumes to the nature of independent venues, of collecting, different types of bands and performances that maybe cross different genres, but it's going to be good. Whether or not it's your taste is different.
Sure.
And I think with Live Nation, as soon as you put some kind of corporate entity rather than the local people of an independent club, you're going to lose that local culture, and you're going to lose a lot of times diversity that way. Now, I do also have friends who, they have personal experience with feeling like it's white people booking shows of other white people performing, and a lot of white people going to those shows. And that in itself is problematic. So I think it's good to have people who are really conscious of like, who are they putting in these positions of booking? What are they looking for? How can we support, really diverse groups, not just by genre, but also by their, sexual orientations and their ethnicities and everything like that. And again, as soon as you start like kind of bottlenecking everything towards like a more corporate model, I think we're going to start losing that even more.
Yeah. Oh, that bums me out.
Me too.
Really bums me out. Because and it seems like a lot of like the independent places, at least in my experience, it's not like typically these days, it's not like there's just one sole booker who is like the gatekeeper. And I know in some places that's not the case. That still is the model. But like, it seems like a lot of times it's like we have this guy who specializes on acoustic Mondays. And then we have this person who specializes on this night that specializes in this, to try to kind of get that diversity and preserve it, like what you're saying.
Yeah, totally.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news on with Ron.